Ontar's log, 16th of Gaynado, 2,000 years after sunfall. I need to be quick with this one. The party's finally about to set off from this wretched city, and I don't want to delay us any further. We've only been here for a few days, but it feels like it's been almost half a year spent here among the Dragonborn in the heart of their empire. So without further ado, let's recap the last session. With the departure of Cambrum, the party now consists of Balazar the Barbarian, best friend to the Emperor, Rogar the Cleric of Joltrind, Tebi the Minotaur Paladin, Micah the now licensed Wizard of Rosalon, myself Ontar the Ranger of Aspera, and our new member, Eltanis the Nobleman Ambassador. We headed off as a group with Lady Gregoria of the High Council to what turned out to be Balazar's family home. We were all surprised to see the normally tough and intimidating barbarian shaking in his boots as we approached the door and went inside. Despite his visible fear, though, Balazar made clear to each of us that we were to stay out of the coming matter with his clan. When his mother finally showed herself, stepping out of the shadows almost like she had planned it in advance, her presence completely filled the room. Balazar cowered in a way none of us had ever seen at the sight of her, getting down on his knees, face to the floor. His mother reprimanded the shriveling dragonborn for his lack of self-respect. It was at this point when Tebi got involved. She moved too quick for any of us to stop her. All of a sudden she was down with Balazar and his mother Kava, leaving the rest of us by the door. Our collective eyes widened as Balazar forced through clenched teeth.
Get out.
Tebi was deaf to it, though, quickly initiating a verbal confrontation with the maternal head of Balazar's clan. Whatever fear the normally fearless barbarian had before this point was now doubled. The rest of the party was in shock. Micah shrunk into a corner while Rogar and I looked at one another, contemplating what to do. All the while, the conflict escalated as Tebi and Kava traded insults back and forth. Behind me, I heard footsteps and looked back to see Cambrum the Warforged and Nicholas coming into the house. Just in time, too. If there was anyone who could defuse the situation and calm down the irate personalities in the room, it was Cambrum. And that he did. He presented himself fondly and spoke with respect to Kava. For a moment he had wrenched control of the situation from Tebi and was slowly soothing the dragonborn mother. But the Minotaur was simply unable to contain herself, releasing a snide remark just as everything seemed like it was going to be okay. Kava quickly turned away from Cambrum and gave her attention to Tebi once again, the conflict escalating further. Balazar begged for Tebi to leave, but she adamantly refused. He grabbed Tebi by the arm to move her, but she wouldn't budge, only being pushed inches with every heave from the barbarian. Rogar and I looked at one another once again, then ran down to help, as did Cambrum soon after. I think I speak for all of us when I say it was not for Tebi's sake, she had earned what was coming to her, but for Balazar, who we wanted to spare the pain of the situation. During the commotion, Micah left the room, mostly unseen. Back on the floor, though, it took several attempts, but eventually we were able to collectively lift the Minotaur up into the air and remove her from the situation. At this point, we all left the house, including Lady Gregoria and Eltanis, who had stayed quiet during the whole ordeal. All except Micah, who stayed back and watched about half of the remaining interaction between Balazar and Kava. Outside, Lady Gregoria invited us to her residence, but we decided to stay and support Balazar for when it was all over. Out in front of the house, I laid into Tebi for disregarding Balazar's well-being inside. The others backed me up a bit, but eventually an awkward silence took hold. Meanwhile, inside, Balazar and Kava conversed extensively. Balazar admitted that he wanted to break off the apparent engagement his family had prepared for him. Amphi, the one we are leaving the city to go save, seemed to be the one who caused Balazar to make this decision. Though he expected harsh, physical retaliation, his mother was instead very understanding and even supportive. She did say, though, that he was lucky it was her that he came to, and not his father. For those of us waiting outside, eventually Micah came out, saying Kava knew where he was the whole time. He said that Balazar seemed safe, though, so the party split up, with Micah, Tebi, and Rogar going to Lady Gregoria's residence, and Eltanis and I going to the Asparan embassy of sorts. It was wonderful spending time with Eltanis, and while I'd like to dive into it, there's a much more important scene that I need to get to. So, long story short, there was Asparan bonding, route planning, and a good meal. Regarding the others, it was difficult for me to watch what they were doing through my recap on omnipotence. Normally I can recall the information with only a little bit of pushing, but this time very little came to me in my search. I suspect that this is because Rogar was there, his inner form of Tiamat distorting the space-time continuum. Whatever the case may be, I'll try and summarize the fuzziness as best I can. Micah and Rogar are able to send messages to our faraway friend Amphi up to twice a day, but they wanted something more direct, so Lady Gregoria brought up a ritual that allowed them to see Amphi's current position. While there, the two sent messages to Amphi, telling her that Balazar had broken off an apparent engagement so that the party could come to Aljanul to free her. The Triton refused this help, lashing out at them both in emotion. With his final message, Rogar told Amphi that he loved her. Sadly, with the message that came in response, Amphi only dug into him further. Soon after this, Shahida, the genie keeping Amphi enslaved, came in and ended the communication. This summary doesn't nearly do justice to how emotionally powerful the entire scene was. Once again, blame Tiamat. The next day, the party convened and decided on the path to get to Aljanul from the Empire. We were to travel by boat to Ormonken, head northwest through Aspera and the forest of Munti, and trek through the swamps of Manamaskar to get to Dima Abatare. From there, we would decide when it was best to get on a ship bound for Aljanul. With this decided, the party then split up to get ready for departure. We leave off with Micah and I gathering supplies for the journey, Rogar and Balazar getting our already procured materials from Cambrum, and Tebi and Eltanis securing a ship to take us to Ormonken. This concludes Ontar's log, March 27th, 2021.